Enzo Maresca is about to become the Chelsea manager on a new long-term 5-year deal. And there's so much to unpack. Chelsea have briefed the media stating they are copying the model of Arsenal because they are impressed. They are excited about Chelsea echoing what Arsenal have done. They have studied how Arteta, one of Pep's disciples, as they have named it, is now thriving at Arsenal. And they hope that Enzo Maresca can thrive and flourish in exactly the same way. Now, of course, hit the like buttons before we start. Make sure you are subscribing, have bell notifications turned on, and join our transfer group chat by scanning that QR code right there. Go get it done, please. Thank you. Now, of course, this is going to lead to a little bit of banter. Chelsea fans will say, we're nothing like Arsenal. Arsenal haven't won any major trophies. Why would we copy them? Arsenal fans will say, ha, 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 we're the blueprint. You're copying us. That's embarrassing. And we'll get into that a little bit later in the video, but I want us to park that. If we can, as a community, let's park it for a moment. Where has this information come from? There is a big piece in the Daily Mail today. Read it. Genuinely read it. The link is in the description. It's very insightful. This isn't a 2 or 3 paragraph puff piece with snippets and clips from other people's articles that's just sort of there for, I wouldn't call it clickbait, but is there just to fill space. This is a very in-depth and detailed article from Kieran Gill and Thomas, I want to pronounce his name right, it's Colomus. And let's go back to the beginning here. A week ago, nobody was talking about Enzo Maresca. No Chelsea fan, generally speaking. The media weren't saying, Poch goes, if Ten Hag goes, in a year's time and when Pep goes. Nobody was speaking about Enzo. Let's just be honest about that amongst ourselves. Now, I'm not going to do the atypical approach of, that means he's a bad manager. That means he's going to fail. I just don't see it that way. I'm intrigued about this signing for Chelsea. But this article, when you have to study the article, is very well put together and very well sourced and exceedingly detailed. That detail tells you they've been briefed. Who has briefed them with this information? 110%, in my opinion, it's come from Chelsea. So this information, in my humble opinion, has come direct from Chelsea Football Club because it speaks of why Chelsea like Enzo Maresca so much. It speaks of why they believe it's going to work. And in this, and he's quoted in 2 separate paragraphs within this huge article. The first one here says all of this, though, for Chelsea to overlook how Maresca's CV has never managed at the highest level. Having previously coached Parma in Serie B and Leicester in the Championship, where he secured promotion to the Premier League in his single season in charge. But then Mikel Arteta, another Guardiola disciple, had never managed before, taking over Arsenal, and is turning them into a Premier League title contender, has turned them into Premier League title contenders. The article then goes on to say that Chelsea have looked at how Arteta eventually thrived at Arsenal after leaving Guardiola's staff, and they hope that Maresca can flourish in the same way. Based on his ability on the training ground, he will stand every chance. Yet more than managing his players, Maresca's great challenge may be how he manages his own manner. The Stamford Bridge job is perhaps like no other in English football, with the long era of success under Roman Abramovich still influencing expectations. And that's a very interesting part. But the briefing has come from Chelsea, and they're essentially stating, look, we had Thomas Tuchel, we didn't get on with him, we sacked him. Maybe that was a mistake. We went for an up-and-coming manager in Potter, but we really brought him in at the wrong time. We didn't back him. We didn't make it a long-term plan. We then went for a short-term, almost win-now option on a 2-year deal in Poch to bring this young group together. That hasn't worked. We want to be a club that's completely in control of our own destiny. Yes, we have a manager or a head coach, as they're now going to be calling it, who coaches the team, but that is all we want him or her to focus on. We don't want them to have control over transfers and manage elements of the football club. We want them to be the head coach. And so much of this goes on at Arsenal. And I think they've looked at Arsenal's situation. And I know you'll get Arsenal's detractors say, but they haven't won a major trophy. Copying a model or replicating a model doesn't mean your outcome is going to be the same. It doesn't mean that in any way, any shape, or any form. It just doesn't. You may have a friend who says, "Oh, Terry, look, I'm following this. I'm eating like Uncle Eddie on Instagram, and I'm following Arnold Schwarzenegger's training regime." But you look at them and go, "You're not getting much bigger. You've still got a pot belly. You're not squatting a lot. I'm not following what you're doing. It doesn't work." Well, maybe you can do it better. Doesn't mean that you haven't been inspired by it. And I think that people get too bogged down in Arsenal's end results or City's end results or United's end results when they mimic, when they copy, when they follow a particular path. And it coincides with another article that's come out today from Sam Wallace. It says that the new breed of club owners want a different kind of manager, a head coach, a departmental head of first team football, rather than a traditional manager. It's about control. And I know some Arsenal fans disregard this, but it's what's going on at Arsenal. They had a manager that run the football club in Arsene Wenger. They then tried the model with Unai Emery and it didn't work. What they now have is Josh Kroenke running the show. They have Edu in there managing large facets of the football club and these minions around him. And then they have Arteta, who does have a say on transfers. But his say is, this is the brand of football we as a club have decided to play. I'm the man who's coaching it. I think this player will work. If the board agrees, they bring that player in. If they don't, they won't. Arteta is, yes, he's the manager in name, but he manages the first team. He'll have input. He'll give opinions, the same as Enzo Maresca will at Chelsea. But he ultimately doesn't run the football club, Mikel Arteta, in the same way that Arsene Wenger did. And this is key. Most top clubs across Europe, wouldn't call it a modern day phenomenon. I think this is pretty normal. The days of your Wengers and your Alex Fergusons are gone. And what's now changed and where Chelsea have to adapt, and I've been saying this for years, is the Roman approach as it was in its early successful days doesn't work now because more clubs have money. There are so many teams now with huge amounts of money, and FFP is also in play. So what Roman was able to do is get the best managers in the world and spend more than everybody else in the early years. That built him a core group and a spine that was formidable and allowed them to keep winning. But now that City have money, in fact, the whole top six have money, there are multiple European clubs with billionaire owners and FFPs in place. Having those same standards is key, but you have to go about it in a slightly different way. And I think there are elements of what Arsenal have done in terms of transitioning away from a structure that didn't work into a team that is now challenging that Chelsea can take inspiration from. It doesn't mean, oh my God, if we copy Arsenal, it means we won't win the Premier League. Firstly, I think Arsenal may go on to win a Premier League or a Champions League under Arteta. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that Chelsea's path is going to take as long. It doesn't mean they won't win the major trophies. I think Chelsea fans have got to calm down here. Of course, Gooners are going to banter you because you've kind of bantered them for their approach for years. Now your club is saying we're going to do something very similar. But lots of clubs are going to do what Arsenal do, but it isn't even Arsenal's model. It's how the majority of top clubs on the continent work. It's how Manchester City work and have been working since they got in charge. It's how Brighton operate on a smaller scale with a smaller budget. In fact, it's how most football clubs operate in Europe, and the majority should do it in the UK. There are no such thing as football managers anymore that manage football clubs. You need head coaches that look after a particular department. And as they grow in stature at your club, as they've been there longer, maybe they get little bits of additional control if they have the talent for it. And as we've seen at Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp's talent ID isn't awful, but it certainly isn't as good as the team that was buying him the Manes and the Salahs and the Van Dijks. If you look at his track record since they've gone, the signings have been below that standard. So it's one of these things where I don't think this approach from Chelsea is overly wrong. I think it's correct they've given this manager a long-term contract because they've admitted in their briefings to the media that we need a long-term project. We haven't really had one. They're almost mixing long-term with short-termism together, and I said it many times before. I like a cheese sandwich. I like a jam sandwich. But together, I think they would taste absolutely awful. But as ever, look, I want to get your views and your opinions on these stories that Chelsea are mimicking, copying, following the Arsenal model to get themselves back onto an even keel and challenge for those major trophies. Leave us your comments below. Make sure you are subscribing. Take care. Goodbye. God bless. And I'll see you soon. Peace.